In this video, we're going to be talking about dividing whole numbers by unit fractions and dividing unit fractions by whole numbers. Now, in class, we discussed the definition of a unit fraction and what a unit fraction is. A unit fraction is any fraction that has a 1 in its denominator and is part of a whole unit. So examples could be 1/2, 1/3, 1/6, 1/11. I even had kids say 1/63. Any of those are considered unit fractions because they have a 1 as their numerator and any number that's a positive number as a denominator. So we're going to be talking about 3 different strategies that we can use for both dividing a whole number by a unit fraction and a unit fraction by a whole number. The first strategy was we're going to use a number line. Now the problem I'm going to illustrate today is 4 divided by 1/3. And in this, the first number is how many I have, and the 1/3 is going to be how many in each group, or how much in each group. So using this number line, I've divided it from 0 to 4 because I have 4 whole units here. And within each of those 4 whole units, in each group, I have 1/3. I've divided each whole into thirds. So here I have 1/3, that's 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5, 6/3, 7/3, 8/3, 9/3, 10/3, 11/3, 12/3. So when I'm dividing a fraction, a whole number by a unit fraction, it's basically asking me, like in this case, 4 divided by 1/3, it's asking me how many thirds are in 4 whole units. So if I were to count them up, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my answer is 12 because there are 12 of those thirds. If I divided that 4 into sections of 1/3, I'd have 12 equal sections. Okay, the second way I can illustrate this is to draw a model. So I have 4 whole units here that I've divided into thirds. And I'm just going to count the number of thirds again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 equal shares. The example I used in class is that I was having a party and I had 4 brownies. And I wanted to divide it so that each person got 1/3 of a brownie. So how many people would get brownies? And my answer was 12. Now the last thing we talked about in how to divide a whole number by a unit fraction is the standard algorithm. Now when I have a unit fraction here, what I want to do is I want to do a strategy that we call keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep my first number the same. I'm going to change the operation from dividing to multiplying, and I'm going to flip my last number, and I'm going to use the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is if I take this fraction, I can flip it so that if I were to multiply these two together, and when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So if I multiplied 1 times 3 and got 3, 3 times 1, and I arrive at 3, that's also equal to 1. So you know you have the correct reciprocal if you multiply the two together and you arrive at 1. I'm just flipping my number upside down. Now we talked about in class that anytime I have a 3 over a 1 or any number over a 1, that's just talking about 3 whole numbers. If I were to divide 3 by 1 using like the cowboy saloon method, 1 can go into 3 3 times, So it's just a whole number 3. Now I just can multiply these two together. If I want to change my first number into a fraction also, all I have to do is put it over a 1. So 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 1 is 1, and that just equals 12 whole units. So this is the keep, change, flip method. I'm just keeping the first number the same, changing my operation from dividing to multiplying, and I'm flipping my last number. Now we can also divide unit fractions by whole numbers. So this is where it's a little different. When I'm dividing a whole number by a unit fraction, a pattern the kids noticed was that the numbers got bigger. I started out with 4 and I ended with 12. So we're going to look at when I'm dividing a unit fraction by a whole number, I've switched it. My number is going to get smaller. So if they're solving these problems and they're finding their numbers getting bigger, then they need to go back and look at their strategies. They may not be doing it correctly. So I'm going to use, it's basically the same problem, but I'm putting the 1/3 first this time, and I'm dividing that by 4. So the 1/3 is what I have. So at my birthday party, when everybody got 1/3 of a brownie, I saved mine. Well, now I want to divide that evenly among 4 people, among 4 groups. So I can use the same 3 strategies. It's just going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to use a number line for my first strategy. Now I have my number line divided now. Instead of having 3, I'm dividing it from 0 to 1. And I took that and I divided it into thirds. So here I have 0, 1/3, 2/3, and it's 3/3 or 1 whole. Now each third I needed to divide into 4 groups. So once I divide each third into 4 groups, I no longer have just thirds. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections. So my number line from 0 to 1, that whole unit, I don't have it broken into thirds anymore. It's now broken into 12ths because there are 12 sections here. So I want to know, basically the question is asking me, when I'm dividing a fraction by a whole number, it's asking me what fraction of the whole does each group receive. So if I want to know what one group receives, right here, that is now equal to 1/12. So I went from 1/3 to 1/12. So my number got smaller, so I know I'm on the right track. Okay, I can also use this and draw a visual. So here I have my whole pan of brownies, my whole unit. Now I'm divided it into thirds, and all I have left is this 1/3. Well, since I want to share that and divide it into 4 equal groups, I can take this and I can draw lines across in order to divide it into 4 groups going from side to side. Now my question, once again, is asking me what fraction of the whole does each group receive. I've broken up my model now into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different parts. So one section of that is going to equal 1/12. Now I can also use the standard algorithm for dividing unit fractions by whole numbers. I'm going to use the same method as I did before. I'm going to use the keep, change, flip method. So I'm going to keep my 1/3 the same. I'm going to change my operation from dividing to multiplying, and I'm going to flip this 4 over 1. I'm going to flip it so that it's now 1/4. Because remember, any whole number, if I have one whole unit, that would be 1 over 1. Because I have one whole unit shaded in of 1 unit. Now, if I have 3 more that are all shaded in, I have 1 over 1, 1 over 1, and 1 over 1. If I were to add those together, I would get 4 over 1. That's where I'm getting that. I have 4 single units. So I flipped that 4 over 1 to now be 1/4. So 1/3 times 1/4. Now when I'm multiplying fractions, I just multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 4 is 12. So my answer is 1/12. So those are the different strategies that students have been taught in class on how to solve dividing a whole number by unit fractions and dividing unit fractions by whole numbers.